Hello interweb friends, Thidumgamer here with another game review, and with Halloween coming up, I thought I would go ahead and review some of my more horror-themed games throughout the month of October. To kick things off, wanted to go ahead and review one of my family's favorite games, Elder Sign. This is a game from Fantasy Flight Games and part of the Arkham Horror Files, meaning it is H.P. Lovecraft themed, heavy on the Cthulhu mythos. Now, this game is a co-op game, meaning that the players are working together towards a common goal. There will not be an individual winner of this game. Either the common goal is met and everybody wins, or the common goal is not met and everybody loses. Now, the game is made for 1 to 8 players. You did hear right, you can play this game by yourself, and it does add quite a bit of difficulty to do that. Now, the game you are choosing to play as an investigator, and the investigators are working together to keep the Elder God from awakening. Or should the Elder God awaken, fight it to put it back to sleep. If all players are killed while fighting the Elder God, everybody loses, and that's not fun. But if they do manage to prevent the Elder God from awakening, or defeating it once it's awake, everybody wins. Now, just want to point out a few different items of this game. Not really go through the gameplays yet. I might do that on a later video because there's a lot involved. But first of all, let's talk about the Elder Gods, the Ancient Ones. A few things to note on the Elder God card is each Elder God has a different ability. Yig has Yig's Anger, which says each time an investigator either completes the task on a cultist monster marker or an investigator is reduced to 0 sanity or stamina, the investigators lose 1 Elder Sign if they have any. Also shows on there what you need to roll to get a successful attack against Yig. You have your Doom track. Yig has 8 Doom tokens that can be played before it awakens. And if Yig does awaken, it has different attacks. First an awakening attack, and also has a round attack. Finally, each Elder God has a number of Elder Signs that must be collected before the Doom track is filled to prevent the Elder God from awakening. Next, going over the Investigator cards. Again, each player gets to choose their own investigator. Each investigator has a different number of sanity and stamina that you will be gaining and losing throughout the game. If you lose all your sanity or stamina, the investigator dies. Different ways that you can handle that throughout the game, but one of the simplest is just discard that and all the items that you've collected and draw a new investigator. Investigators have different starting items that they can get. Looks like Mary goes ahead and gets a common item, a unique item, and a spell tome. And finally, each investigator has its own ability. Now, the abilities of the investigators are different. Some are really, really good in specific scenarios, such as allowing you to change a die roll without re-rolling. Others, such as Sister Mary, are really good in general, allowing you to add extra dice to your rolls. Next thing to go over is the monster tokens. Get this in focus here. Alright, and the monster tokens, such as, well, that's why it was upside down, the Shoggoth, have different tasks that need to be rolled in order to defeat it, and Shoggoth is really nasty that if you meet the 2 rolls, the scroll and the monster sign, you still have to lose 1 stamina. Or, I'm sorry, sanity on that one. Alright, now another item in this game is the clock. After each player's turn, they will go ahead and move the clock forward 3 hours. Every time the clock hits 12 or midnight, guess what? You guys don't get to have a morning. It's always night. Every time the clock hits midnight, round is over. You draw a new event card, and bad things happen. Now you have the home base, as I like to call it. On this, you can choose to play this card instead of a location card. And it can allow you to receive first aid. You can search the lost and found, or buy a souvenir with any trophies that you have received throughout the game. Location cards. Each location card has tasks on it, and each task is along a row. So for the something else has broken free location card, you have one task which is just a skull, and another task which is 2 monster signs. Each location will also have a penalty if you do not pass it, and rewards if you do. And this one has something also kind of mean. If you fail to roll a sign in the tasks, and you also roll a monster sign at the same time, you have, for this one, a terror. You immediately fail this adventure. If you fail the adventure, you have to take the penalty. You have other world location cards, which are rewards for doing normal location cards. And they tend to be a little bit more difficult with the tasks, such as this one needing 8 investigator signs. The penalties tend to be a little stiffer, 2 sanity and 1 stamina, but the rewards are even greater. This one gives you 2 elder signs, a common item, and a unique item. Speaking of which, item cards. There are 4 types. You have common, you have unique, you have spell tomes, and you have allies. Now, the common items tend to give you things like add a yellow dice to your roll. The unique allow you to add red dice to your roll, usually. The spell tomes allow you to save rolls for future tasks. And finally, the allies just do different things. Usually add an ability to your character, but sometimes they're one use, save you from a bad roll or a bad penalty. Another thing that you will have throughout the game, again, as you hit midnight, you get to draw a different event card. Now, the event cards are usually split into 2 things. First, it tells you what to do right now. Usually adding a Doom token to the Doom track. This one is nice in that if one investigator has a unique item, you don't have to do that. And then the second part is what's going to happen the next time the clock strikes midnight. This one says that each investigator must discard 1 clue token if they're able to. Speaking of which, the clue tokens. These are little things that you can pick up throughout the game as rewards. They will allow you to re-roll dice. You also have your sanity and stamina tokens, numbered 1, 3, or 5, to keep track of how much sanity or stamina you have. You have the elder signs. Again, you're collecting these throughout the game, trying to get enough to prevent the elder god from awakening. And doom tokens. These are what you're laying on the doom track to indicate that the elder god is awakening. Finally, we do have our little character tokens. And the pictures match the pictures on the character cards. Lastly, the last item that you will have in the game is your dice. We have 6 green, a yellow, and a red dice. Now, the green dice are all the same. You can roll either 1 investigator token, 2 investigator signs, 2 investigator signs, or 3 investigator signs. You can also roll a scroll, a monster, or a skull. Now, the yellow dice You can roll 1 investigator sign, 2 investigator signs, 3 investigator signs, or 4 investigator signs. You can also roll a scroll or a skull. There are no monster signs on the yellow die. Finally, we have the red die, where you can roll 2 investigator tokens, or signs, 3 investigator signs, 4 investigator signs, a scroll, a skull, or finally a wild. Again, you're rolling dice throughout the game, trying to achieve the tasks set forth on the cards or monsters, trying to beat the Elder God before they awaken or once they awaken. The game itself, like I said, this is one of my family's favorites. It takes a little bit to set up, a little bit to play. I would set aside, if you're playing this, a good 45 minutes. We've had games last longer. We've had games go a little shorter too, but about 45 minutes is a good average. Now, as for age range, this is one, if the child can understand Yahtzee, because all you're doing is rolling dice. If the child can understand Yahtzee, they can play this. As for the more intricate rules in there, you can help them out throughout the game, but for the most part, all they're trying to do is match the tasks on the cards. So a child of 7 or 8 should be able to do this pretty well, as long as you're working through to do the more intricate rules of the game, such as handling the attacks of the Elder God, or what happens when the events are going on. As for difficulty, it depends how you're playing. If you're playing as a one-player game, this is a very high difficulty. Not in the sense that it's hard to understand it, but it's very hard for one player to A, prevent the Elder God from awakening, or B, if they awaken, having successful rolls to put them back to sleep. If you're playing a 4-player game like we usually do, it's not as difficult, but again, it's very hard because it's unforgiving when it comes to the rolls and the Elder God awakening. I'd rank the difficulty of this game right around a 3 to a 4. Again, just depends on the number of players and how strictly or loosely you follow the rules. This is a game that in our household we have added some house rules because just straight up it became a little bit too difficult for our younger kids to play, just because it's not fun to play a game if you are losing constantly. So we tweaked some of the rules ourselves so that there was more chances of winning. And then, of course, as the kids got older, we introduced the rulebook rules a little bit more. It is a very replayable game. Can't mention enough, it's one of our favorites. If we have a lot of time to sit down and play, Elder Sign is one of those that we tend to pull out and play quite often. It's very replayable. You have different characters, you have different old ones, the location cards change all the time, and you have the randomness of the dice. So every game is different. Definitely recommend this game to pick up especially if you or somebody in your family like H.P. Lovecraft and the Cthulhu mythos. I know there's a lot of Cthulhu games out there. It seems like zombies or vampires at one time became cult favorites, and so everything was doing a Cthulhu-style game. This is actually a game based on the Lovecraft mythos, so it's not Cthulhu Monopoly, which I haven't seen, but I'd probably pick that up. I really like H.P. Lovecraft. But again, very replayable game. So just to summarize, age range, I would really recommend about 7 or 8 years old. As for number of players, it does say 1 to 8 players. I found through many different gameplays, you're looking about 3 to 4 players to successfully play the game. Anything less, and it's very difficult to do so. Anything more, and because you're flipping through this clock at the end of every player's turn, if you have more than 3 to 4 players, that clock's flipping at least once before half your players have a chance to play. Finally, time range. Again, give yourself about 45 minutes to an hour to play this. Some games go a little bit quicker and some games can go longer, but on average it's about 45 minutes to an hour. Definitely recommend this game. It is a little bit different than board games people are used to, but it's really fun. And if you're wanting to get into some of the more bigger box games or more difficult box games, this is a nice intro game to do that. But again, Thidumgamer here, and a few last things did want to mention before sign off for the week. Number one, if you're wanting to contact me, you can do so through email at thidumgamer@gmail.com. I also have a Twitter account at Thidumg. If you have any questions for me, game suggestions, feel free to contact me on either one. I will try to reply as soon as I am able to. Also did want to mention, if you like the content, go ahead and click like on here, subscribe. I do try to release a video about once a week. And if you have friends that you think might like it as well, go ahead and share this with them. The more viewers, more content I'll add. Now, speaking of content, got a few more game reviews I want to do for this month, and then I may start getting into some more gameplay, lay out the game and show you how the game is played. Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see, if you just like the game reviews. Of course, as I get any new games, I will go ahead and try to do an unboxing of it. If it's just a deck of cards, I'm not going to unbox the deck of cards, but I'll review the game for you. But other than that, have yourselves a great week, and I hope to see you soon.